Laos under French rule, 1893–1953, a colonial era of control, marginalization, and resistance. From 1893 to 1953, Laos was part of the French colonial empire in Southeast Asia, incorporated into the vast territory known as French Indochina. Though often overshadowed by the colonial experiences of its neighbors Vietnam and Cambodia, Laos's time under French rule deeply shaped its modern borders, administrative structures, and political trajectory. This period was marked by limited development, centralized French authority, and growing nationalist sentiment that would eventually erupt into demands for independence. Establishing the Protectorate. France claims Laos. By the late 19th century, France was expanding its colonial ambitions in Southeast Asia. After conflicts with Siam, modern-day Thailand, and a series of treaties, France secured control of the territory east of the Mekong River. In 1893, the Kingdom of Luang Prabang, previously under Siamese suzerainty, became a French protectorate. Over the following years, France extended its control to the rest of the Lao territories. Laos was officially made part of French Indochina in 1899, alongside Vietnam and Cambodia, with its colonial administration centered in Vientiane. Unlike Vietnam, however, Laos was considered a backwater colony, valued more for strategic reasons than economic potential. Administration and governance. The French ruled Laos as a protectorate, which meant that local monarchs like the King of Luang Prabang remained nominally in power. In practice, however, authority rested with French colonial administrators who oversaw law, taxation, infrastructure, and trade. Key features of French governance included centralized bureaucracy with little room for local participation, use of Vietnamese personnel for administrative tasks, which fueled ethnic tensions, introduction of French language education, but access was limited to a small elite, disregard for local customs in many administrative areas. The French largely neglected Laos economically, focusing on resource extraction, especially timber, rather than large-scale infrastructure or industrial development. Cultural and social changes. The French brought Western-style education, but it reached only a tiny fraction of the population, mainly the children of elites. Most Laotians, especially those in rural areas, remained outside the formal education system. Theravada Buddhism remained central to Lao identity and was mostly left untouched by French authorities, who saw the monastic system as a stabilizing force. However, Catholic missionaries also established a presence, introducing some social services and schools. Ethnic minorities, especially those in the mountainous north and south, received minimal attention from the colonial government and were often excluded from any development. Laos as the quiet colony. Compared to Vietnam and Cambodia, Laos was relatively quiet under French rule, earning it the nickname La Colonie oubliée, the forgotten colony. The lack of investment, political mobilization, and large-scale industry meant that Laos remained rural, underdeveloped, and politically passive for much of the colonial era. However, this began to change in the 1930s and 1940s, as ideas of nationalism, self-rule, and anti-colonialism spread through Indochina. Laos was influenced by the rise of Vietnamese resistance movements, the emergence of Lao nationalist groups such as Lao Isara, Free Laos, the impact of World War II, which destabilized colonial authority. World War II and the path to independence. During World War II, Laos fell under Japanese occupation briefly in 1945, leading to a power vacuum. In that period, the Lao Isara movement declared independence, but French forces soon returned and reasserted control. The post-war period, however, saw mounting pressure for decolonization. France, weakened by war, was struggling to maintain its empire. Nationalist sentiments gained strength, particularly among the elite. The broader First Indochina War, which began in Vietnam in 1946, complicated French efforts in the region. After several years of negotiation and reform, France agreed to grant Laos autonomy in 1949, followed by full independence in 1953 under the Royal Lao government led by King Sisavang Vong. Conclusion: French colonial rule in Laos was characterized by limited development, external control, and marginalization of local voices. Although it brought some modernization, the benefits were uneven, and the Lao population remained largely disenfranchised. Still, the experience laid the foundation for modern national borders and a political awakening that would soon plunge Laos into deeper conflict during the Cold War years.